What if I told you that the greatest fall in history and the greatest act of love ever witnessed came down to one single choice? The choice between pride and humility, between wanting to be God and choosing to serve humanity. This is the story of two beings, two paths, two destinies that couldn't be more different. You see, when we discuss Lucifer and Christ, we're not just talking about religious figures or ancient mythology. We're talking about something that lives inside every single one of us right now, in this very moment. The battle between our ego and our compassion, between our desire to be worshipped and our willingness to serve. And understanding this contrast might just change the way you see yourself and the world around you. Let's start with Lucifer. Now, depending on the tradition you follow, Lucifer was once considered the most beautiful and radiant of all angels. His name literally means light-bearer or morning star. Can you imagine that? The brightest of all celestial beings. He had everything: beauty, power, proximity to the divine, and the admiration of other angels. He was, by all accounts, perfect. But here's where things get interesting. According to the story, Lucifer looked at all that he had, all that he was, and it wasn't enough. He didn't just want to be great. He wanted to be the greatest. He didn't want to serve. He wanted to be served. He didn't want to reflect God's light. He wanted to be the source of light himself. And so he said those famous words that echo through eternity. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Think about that for a second. He had everything, but the one thing he couldn't have was equality with God. And that one thing consumed him. That's the nature of pride, isn't it? It's never satisfied. It always wants more. It always compares. It always needs to be on top. Pride tells you that you deserve better than what you have. Pride whispers that you're special, that the rules don't apply to you, that you should be recognized, celebrated, elevated above others. Pride makes you think that humility is weakness and that serving others is beneath you. And pride, ultimately, leads to the same fall that Lucifer experienced. Because when you can't stand being anything less than supreme, you end up isolated, rejected, cast out. The story goes that Lucifer led a rebellion. He convinced a third of the angels to follow him. Can you imagine the charisma, the persuasive power that must have taken? But here's the thing about pride. It's contagious. When someone stands up and says, "We deserve more, we deserve to rule, we shouldn't have to bow to anyone," there are always others who will listen. Because pride appeals to that part of us that wants to be our own God, that wants to live without limits, without accountability, without having to acknowledge that we're not the center of the universe. And what happened? He fell. The light-bearer became the prince of darkness. The most beautiful angel became the embodiment of all that opposes good. He went from heaven to hell, from the heights to the depths, from being closest to God to being furthest from him. That's what happens when pride runs its course. It promises you everything and delivers you to nothing. But Lucifer's fall wasn't just about losing his position. It was about what happened to him internally. Pride hardens the heart. It makes you bitter. It makes you blame everyone else for your failures. It makes you want to drag others down with you. And that's exactly what Lucifer does in the stories, right? He becomes the tempter, the accuser, the one who wants to prove that humanity is just as flawed as he is, that everyone will choose pride if given the chance. Now let's shift gears completely. Let's talk about Christ. And here's where the contrast becomes absolutely stunning. While Lucifer was ascending, trying to climb higher, trying to make himself equal with God, Christ did the exact opposite. The Apostle Paul describes it beautifully when he says that Christ, who was in the form of God, didn't consider equality with God something to be grasped or held onto. Instead, he emptied himself. He took the form of a servant. He humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Let that sink in for a moment. Christ actually was God, or at least that's what the Christian tradition teaches. He didn't need to aspire to divinity. He had it. He was there at the creation of the world. He was eternal, all-powerful, glorious beyond measure. And yet, he chose to come down. He chose to become human. He chose limitation over unlimited power. He chose vulnerability over invincibility. He chose service over sovereignty. Why would anyone do that? Why would someone who has everything choose to have nothing? Why would the King of Kings choose to be born in a stable? Why would the creator of the universe choose to work as a carpenter? Why would the source of all life choose to die? The answer is love. But not just any love. Humble love. Sacrificial love. The kind of love that doesn't count the cost, that doesn't keep score, that doesn't demand recognition or repayment. Christ's entire life was a masterclass in humility. He washed his disciples' feet, a job reserved for the lowest servants. He touched lepers when everyone else avoided them. He ate with tax collectors and sinners when the religious elite criticized him for it. He welcomed children when his disciples tried to send them away. He forgave the people who were crucifying him while he hung on the cross. Every single action was a choice to go lower, to serve more, to give more, to love more. And the crazy thing is, he had the power to do the opposite at any moment. When he was arrested, he told Peter that he could call down legions of angels to rescue him. When people mocked him on the cross, challenging him to save himself if he really was the Son of God, he had the power to do exactly that. But he didn't. Because humility isn't about lacking power. It's about choosing not to use power for your own benefit. This is where we need to understand something crucial. Humility is not weakness. It's not low self-esteem. It's not thinking you're worthless. True humility is knowing your worth and choosing to use it for others rather than for yourself. Christ knew exactly who he was. He said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." He claimed to be one with God. He said that whoever had seen him had seen the Father. Those aren't the words of someone with low self-esteem. But knowing who he was didn't make him proud. It made him responsible. It made him compassionate. It made him willing to pay the ultimate price for humanity's redemption. Now, here's where this gets really practical for us. Because we're not angels and most of us aren't claiming to be divine. We're just regular people trying to navigate life. So what does this contrast between pride and humility mean for us? Every single day, we face the same choice that Lucifer and Christ faced. Maybe not on the same cosmic scale, but the principle is identical. Do we choose to elevate ourselves or serve others? Do we choose to demand recognition or to give credit away? Do we choose to protect our image or to be vulnerable and authentic? Do we choose to hold grudges or to forgive? Do we choose to compete or to collaborate? Do we choose to take or to give? Pride shows up in so many subtle ways in our daily lives. It shows up when we can't admit we're wrong because that would damage our image. It shows up when we feel threatened by someone else's success because we think there's only room for one person at the top. It shows up when we constantly need to prove ourselves, to show everyone how smart we are, how talented we are, how much we've achieved. It shows up when we judge others harshly while excusing our own failures. It shows up when we refuse to ask for help because we need everyone to think we have it all together. And here's the brutal truth about pride. It isolates us. Because when you're always trying to be better than everyone else, you can't have real relationships. You can't be vulnerable. You can't let people see your struggles because that would shatter the image. You end up alone at the top of your self-made mountain, and the view is actually pretty lonely. Humility, on the other hand, connects us. When you're humble, you can admit your mistakes and learn from them. You can celebrate other people's wins without feeling diminished. You can ask for help without feeling weak. You can be yourself without needing to perform. You can have real conversations instead of just trying to impress people. You can build genuine relationships based on mutual respect rather than hierarchies and competition. But let's be honest, humility is hard. It goes against everything our culture teaches us. We live in a world of personal branding, of social media highlight reels, of hustling and grinding and proving ourselves. We're told that if we're not the best, we're nothing. We're told to fake it till we make it, to never let them see you sweat, to always be closing. The entire system seems built on Lucifer's philosophy. Climb higher, be greater, dominate, win at all costs. And yet, Look at what happens to people who follow that path all the way. They get to the top and realize it's empty. They achieve success and find it doesn't satisfy. They accumulate wealth and discover it doesn't bring peace. They gain followers and realize they're still lonely. They win every argument and end up with no friends. Because pride promises fulfillment but delivers emptiness every single time. Christ's path looks foolish by worldly standards. Serve others? You'll get taken advantage of. Put others first? You'll never get ahead. Forgive people who wrong you? You'll look weak. Die to yourself? You'll miss out on life. But here's the paradox that has played out billions of times throughout history. The people who live this way actually find what they're looking for. They find meaning. They find a connection. They find peace. They find joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. They find a life that matters beyond their own existence. Think about the people you most admire. I mean, really admire, not just envy or want to be like because they're rich or famous, but people you genuinely respect and look up to. Chances are, they're people who have shown humility, people who use their power to lift others, people who admit their failures and keep trying, people who don't take themselves too seriously, people who serve without needing constant recognition, people who make you feel valued rather than making you feel small. That's the power of humility. And here's something fascinating. The story says that because Christ humbled himself, God exalted him. He was given the name above every name. Every knee would bow to him. He was raised from death to eternal life. He went from the cross to the throne, from the grave to glory. His humility didn't lead to permanent lowness. It led to ultimate elevation. Not the kind of elevation Lucifer grasped for, but the kind that was given as a gift because of his character. Meanwhile, Lucifer, who tried to exalt himself, was brought low. He tried to ascend and ended up falling. He tried to be worshipped and became despised. He tried to establish his own kingdom and ended up ruling over a realm of misery and separation. There's a principle here that shows up everywhere in life. When you grasp for something, it slips through your fingers. When you hold it loosely and offer it freely, it somehow multiplies. When you try to save your life, you lose it. When you're willing to lose your life for something greater, you find it. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. So what does this mean for you right now today? It means you have a choice. You can choose the path of pride or the path of humility. You can choose to live for yourself or to live for something greater than yourself. You can choose to build your own kingdom or to contribute to a larger story. And yes, you'll face this choice not just once, but over and over again, in small moments and big decisions. When someone criticizes you, do you defend yourself pridefully or receive it humbly? When you succeed, do you take all the credit or acknowledge the people who helped you? When you see someone struggling, do you judge them from your position of strength or extend compassion from a place of shared humanity? When you have power, do you use it to elevate yourself or to serve others? When you're wronged, do you seek revenge or offer forgiveness? These aren't abstract theological questions. These are daily, practical choices that shape who you become. Because here's the thing, you become what you practice. If you practice pride, you become proud. If you practice humility, you become humble. And the person you become determines the life you live and the legacy you leave. Lucifer was the light bearer who became the source of darkness. Christ was the light of the world who illuminated the darkness. One fell because he tried to rise. One rose because he was willing to fall. One lost everything trying to gain it. One gained everything by giving it away. One is remembered as the epitome of evil. One is worshipped as the embodiment of love. Same choice, opposite directions, completely different outcomes. And that same fork in the road stands before each of us every single day. The path of pride is wide and looks appealing. It promises glory, recognition, power, independence, and the satisfaction of being on top. But it leads to isolation, emptiness, bitterness, and ultimately, destruction. The path of humility is narrow and looks unappealing. It requires sacrifice, vulnerability, service, and the willingness to be last. But it leads to connection, meaning, peace, and ultimately, life in its fullest sense. You don't have to be religious to understand this principle. You don't have to believe in angels or demons or divine beings. You just have to look at your own life and the lives around you. Who are the miserable people? Usually, they're the ones consumed by pride, constantly comparing themselves, always needing to prove something, unable to admit fault, unable to forgive, unable to just be. Who are the content people? Usually, they're the ones who have learned humility, who can laugh at themselves, who can apologize, who can celebrate others, who find joy in simple service. The beautiful thing is that it's never too late to change direction. Lucifer's story is a tragedy because he never repented, he never turned back, he doubled down on his pride and stayed in his fall. But our stories don't have to end that way. Every moment is a chance to choose differently. Every day is an opportunity to practice humility instead of pride. Every interaction is a chance to serve instead of dominate. Every success is a chance to give credit instead of taking it. Every failure is a chance to learn instead of blame. Maybe you've been living like Lucifer. Maybe you've been climbing, grasping, competing, performing, trying to prove yourself, trying to be the best, trying to be your own God. And maybe you're tired. Maybe you've realized that no matter how high you climb, it's never enough. Maybe you're lonely at the top. Maybe you're carrying the weight of maintaining an image that doesn't match reality. Maybe you're exhausted from never being able to admit weakness or need. If that's you, there's another way. You can choose the path of Christ. You can choose to come down from your self-made pedestal. You can choose to be honest about your struggles. You can choose to serve instead of being served. You can choose to love instead of being loved first. You can choose to give instead of always taking. You can choose to forgive instead of keeping score. And when you do, you'll discover something amazing. You'll discover that humility doesn't diminish you. It actually frees you. It frees you from the exhausting performance. It frees you from the constant comparison. It frees you from the fear of being exposed. It frees you to be fully human, fully alive, fully you. This contrast between Lucifer and Christ isn't just ancient history or religious doctrine. It's the fundamental choice of human existence. It's the choice between love and selfishness, between service and domination, between community and isolation, between life and death. And the beautiful, terrible truth is that you get to choose. Every single day, in every single moment, you get to choose. What will you choose? Will you be the light bearer who becomes darkness, or the light giver who illuminates darkness? Will you grasp for greatness or receive it as a gift? Will you demand to be served or choose to serve? Will you exalt yourself and be humbled, or humble yourself and be exalted? The choice is yours, and it will determine everything. Now I want to hear from you. Think about your own life right now. Where do you see pride showing up? Where do you need to choose humility? Have you experienced the consequences of pride or the blessings of humility? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about this because I guarantee you're not the only one struggling with these questions. Remember, the greatest fall in history came from pride, but the greatest act of love came from humility. You have the power to choose which path you'll walk. Choose wisely, because that choice will echo into eternity. If this video made you think, if it challenged you, if it encouraged you, hit that like button. And if you want more content exploring deep philosophical and spiritual truths that actually matter for your daily life, subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people who refuse to live on autopilot, who ask the hard questions, who choose substance over superficiality. Join us on this journey. Until next time, choose humility, choose love, choose life.